His name alone echoes through history: Napoleon Bonaparte. He was the ultimate self-made man, a figure of such immense ambition and talent that he seems almost mythical. Born on a small, obscure island, he rose through the bloody chaos of the French Revolution to crown himself Emperor of the French. He didn't just win battles, he revolutionized warfare itself. He didn't just rule, he codified laws that shape nations to this day. He didn't just conquer, he redrew the entire map of Europe. For nearly 2 decades, the continent marched to the beat of his drum. His ambition was limitless, a fire that consumed the old world, but like a blazing comet, his meteoric rise was matched only by his spectacular, devastating fall. This is the story of the man who held Europe in the palm of his hand, and then lost it all. Born in Corsica in 1769, a young Napoleon Bonaparte was sent to military school in mainland France. He was an outsider, often mocked for his thick Corsican accent and his fierce, brooding intensity. While other boys socialized, he devoured books on history and military theory. He found his true calling in mathematics and its practical application: artillery. This mastery of cannons, the cutting-edge technology of his day, would become his signature weapon on the battlefield. The French Revolution, a whirlwind of terror and radical change, provided the perfect stage for a man of his talents and ambition. The old order was collapsing, and merit, not birth, was becoming the path to power. His moment arrived in 1793 at the port of Toulon. Royalist rebels, backed by a powerful British fleet, had seized the city. The young Captain Bonaparte, just 24 years old, devised a brilliant and audacious plan. He saw that by capturing the high ground overlooking the harbour, his artillery could rain down hell upon the British ships, making their position untenable. His superiors were skeptical, but his logic was flawless and his energy infectious. Under a hail of enemy fire, Napoleon personally led the charge, placing his cannons with expert precision. The strategy worked perfectly. The British fleet was forced to flee, and Toulon fell. Overnight, Napoleon was a national hero, promoted to brigadier general. His name was on everyone's lips in Paris. Over the next few years, his star continued to rise. His campaigns in Italy were a masterclass in speed and decisive action. He took a demoralized, poorly supplied French army and turned it into an unstoppable force, repeatedly defeating larger Austrian armies. Victories at Lodi, where he famously led his men across a bridge under heavy fire, and Rivoli, where he defeated an army twice his size through rapid maneuver, cemented his legend. He was more than a general. He was a political force, negotiating treaties and establishing republics in Italy. By 1799, the government back in France, the Directory, was corrupt, weak, and unstable. Seeing a power vacuum, Napoleon rushed back from his campaign in Egypt. On the 18th of Brumaire, he executed a bold coup d'état, with his brother Lucien rallying the politicians and his grenadiers clearing the chambers. He seized control of France first, as first consul, and then in a magnificent ceremony at Notre Dame in 1804, he took the crown from the Pope's hands and placed it on his own head. The boy from Corsica was now Napoleon I, Emperor of the French. He had replaced a fractured republic with an all-powerful empire forged by sheer willpower and military genius. Napoleon's military career is a collection of masterpieces, but one battle stands above all others. Austerlitz, fought on December 2, 1805, the first anniversary of his coronation. It is widely considered his most dazzling achievement. Napoleon, with his Grande Armée, faced the combined might of the Austrian and Russian empires, a force that significantly outnumbered his own. The Allied emperors Alexander I of Russia and Francis II of Austria were confident, eager to crush the upstart Corsican. Napoleon, the master of deception, played into their arrogance. He deliberately projected an image of weakness and anxiety, requesting an armistice and abandoning the strategically important Pratzen Heights in the center of the battlefield. He correctly predicted that the Allies would try to turn his seemingly weak right flank to cut him off from Vienna. He baited the trap, stretching his right flank thin. As the sun rose through a thick morning fog, the legendary son of Austerlitz, the Allied columns began their massive flanking maneuver, pouring troops down from the Pratzen Heights to attack his right. This was the exact moment Napoleon had been waiting for. He had secretly moved Marshal Soult's the Fourth Corps, hiding them in the mist at the base of the heights. As the Allied center was fatally weakened, Napoleon gave the order, "One sharp blow, and the war is over." Soult's corps surged forward, ascending the now undefended Pratzen Heights and appearing as if from nowhere. They smashed into the Allied center, splitting their army completely in two. The Allied command was thrown into chaos. What was meant to be their winning move had become their undoing. With their line severed, the Allied wings were isolated and destroyed piece by piece. The left wing was driven onto frozen lakes, where French artillery shattered the ice, sending thousands of men and horses into the freezing water. It was a complete and utter rout. The Third Coalition was shattered in a single day. Austerlitz was more than a victory. It was the ultimate expression of Napoleon's tactical genius: deception, speed, concentration of force, and the devastating use of massed artillery. It secured his total dominance over Central Europe and forever cemented his reputation as the greatest military commander of his age. But great ambition often leads to great arrogance. Napoleon's belief in his own invincibility would become his undoing. His fatal mistake was the invasion of Russia in 1812. Assembled from across his vast empire, the Grande Armée was the largest European army ever seen, over 500,000 strong. It was a magnificent, terrifying spectacle as it crossed the Niemen River into Russian territory. Napoleon expected a quick, decisive battle, another Austerlitz that would force Tsar Alexander to submit. But the Russians refused to play his game. Under the command of General Barclay de Tolly, they employed a brilliant and brutal scorched earth strategy. They retreated ever deeper into the vastness of Russia, systematically destroying crops, burning villages, and leaving nothing behind for the invading French to live on. The Grande Armée, with its enormous supply train struggling to keep up, began to bleed men, not from battle, but from starvation, disease, and desertion. Napoleon finally got his battle at Borodino, a horrific bloodbath that was one of the deadliest single days of the Napoleonic Wars. The French won a tactical victory, but the Russian army was not destroyed. A week later, Napoleon entered Moscow, expecting the Tsar to surrender. Instead, he found a ghost city, emptied of its people. That night, fires broke out across Moscow, set by Russian patriots. The city burned for days, destroying what little shelter and supplies remained. Napoleon waited for 5 weeks in the smouldering ruins for a peace offer that never came. Finally, in mid-October, with winter closing in, he had no choice but to order the retreat. It was a catastrophe. The infamous Russian winter arrived early, and with savage intensity. Temperatures plummeted. Starving, frozen soldiers, dressed in summer uniforms, staggered through endless snowscapes, harassed constantly by Cossack cavalry. The once mighty Grande Armée was annihilated. Of the more than 500,000 who had entered Russia, fewer than 20,000 effective soldiers staggered back across the Niemen River. The myth of Napoleon's invincibility was shattered, frozen to death in the Russian snow. This catastrophic defeat crippled him. Europe's other powers sensed his weakness and rose up against him. Though he fought a series of brilliant campaigns in 1813 and 1814 with a new army of raw conscripts, he was overwhelmed by sheer numbers and was forced to abdicate. Exiled to the island of Elba, his story should have ended there. But Napoleon's ambition was not so easily extinguished. In less than a year, he escaped, landed in France, and began the legendary 100 Days, reclaiming his throne without a single shot fired as his old soldiers flocked to his banner. Europe, terrified, mobilized against him once more. His final gamble came on the fields of Waterloo in 1815. In a close, brutal battle, he was finally and decisively defeated by the combined armies of Britain and Prussia. This time, there would be no second chances. He was exiled for good to the remote, windswept island of St. Helena in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, where he would die 6 years later. Yet his legacy is far greater than his battles. He was a destroyer of the old feudal order, and wherever his armies marched, they spread the ideals of the French Revolution: liberty, equality, and meritocracy. But his most enduring contribution is undoubtedly the Napoleonic Code. This revolutionary civil law system swept away the confusing tangle of feudal laws and established a clear, logical framework for property rights, family, and individual liberty. It was so influential that it still forms the basis of the legal systems in dozens of countries across Europe, the Americas, and beyond. Napoleon proved that in the right moment, a single person's vision could fundamentally transform the world. But his story is also a timeless warning that no man, no matter how brilliant, is greater than the immense human cost of war. So, what do you think? Was Napoleon a tyrant who bathed Europe in blood for his own glory, or a visionary reformer who dragged a continent into the modern age? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoy stories that changed the world, make sure to like and subscribe for more.